Today, I'm going to stand about the Anti-Terrorism Act in the Philippines as of 2020. What is the Anti-Terrorism Act in the Philippines? Anti-Terrorism Act in the Philippines. It is the policy of the state to protect life, liberty, and property from the acts of terrorism and to condemn terrorism and those who support and finance it, and to recognize it as inimical and dangerous to the national security and the welfare of the people, and to make the financing of terrorism or crime against the Filipino people, against humanity, and against the law of the nations. Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020. The Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020 officially designated as the Republic Act number 11479 is prohibit and penalize terrorism in the Philippines. It is effectively signed by our President Rodrigo Roa Duterte on July 18, 2020. I stand about the Anti-Terrorism Bill. According to the Republic of the Philippines Department of Justice, on October 14, 2020, the Anti-Terrorism Council passed a resolution approving the implementing rules of regulations of the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020. The Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020 is the most recent effort to address the issue of terrorism and all the allied activities, while at the same time ensuring the protection of our civil and political rights. As you can see, in our society today, nowadays, prevailings of different issues about this act, about this bill. In the preparation of implementing rules and regulation, the Anti-Terrorism Council revisited the Constitution, prevailing laws, other implementing rules and regulations, jurisprudence, even the rules of the court. This is to ensure that execute prerogatives are tempered by the Constitution, prevailing law, and jurisprudence, and if it is necessary, by available judicial remedies. More importantly, the implementing rules and regulations consistent with the declared policy of the 2020 very clearly sets out the role of the Anti-Terrorism Council will play in ensuring that policies and programs are in place to address terrorism and not causes. That is why I stand for the Anti-Terrorism Bill Act of 2020, which is why signed by our President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. According to the Amnesty Original in the latest news, Philippines' dangerous anti-terror law yet another setback for human rights. As it said, that the human rights are affected with this law, so that they battle against it. So, responding to the news that Philippines President Rodrigo Roa Duterte signed the Anti-Terrorism Act into law, Amnesty International's Asia Pacific Regional Director Nicolas Bikilin said, under Duterte's presidency, even the mildest government critics can be labeled terrorist. So this administration has effectively crafted new weapon to brand and round any perceived enemies of the state. In prevailing climate of impunity, a law so vague on the definition of terrorism, the terrorism things can only worsen attacks against human rights defenders. So this means a lot. That is why, for me, in my country, consequently, I will stand that the terrorism bill, the Anti-Terrorism Bill Act of 2020 will prevent the terrorist attack. Since in our place nowadays could be worsened back in the midst of this pandemic. On July 3, 2020, Philippine President Rodrigo signed into law the policy that the Anti-Terrorism Bill Act as a law. Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, which replaced the Human Security Act of 2007. Amnesty International has called on the Philippines government to resort this legislation that contains dangerous so that they reject it. So to these provisions and risk further undermining human rights in the country. The Anti-Terrorism Bill Act of 2020. So, the law punishes the following offenses with the years of imprisonment: threatening to commit terrorism, inciting others or proposing to commit terrorism, voluntarily and knowing joining only terrorist group, acting as accessory in the commission of terrorism. But I cannot further discuss about the offenses or but I don't know, there is no bailment of the anti-terrorism bill. So a good laws should pass and navigate through the careful nuances of the Constitution and the rights granted to us by the same Constitution. Create communities with truth seekers, communities that will not resort to hatred and violence, but we do what is right. We're interested in what's ethical and what is correct. That is said by the lecturing things in the sittings. So, as the Anti-Terrorism Bill of 2020, I, Rona Liang Albaladijo, stand for any cost of it. Once again, good day.